My name is Daniel. I work night shifts at Blackwood Hospital, and let me tell you, this place is weird. Lights flicker for no reason, call buttons go off in empty rooms, and sometimes, you hear footsteps when no one's there. But what happened? Last night, that was different. It was around 3 a.m. when I was making my rounds. As I passed room 409, I saw a nurse standing inside. She was adjusting an IV drip, her back turned to me. Nothing strange about that, except for one thing. Room 409 was empty, no patients, no charts, nothing. I hesitated, then knocked on the door. Everything okay in here? The nurse froze. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she turned to face me. My stomach dropped, her eyes completely black, no whites, no pupils, just an endless, empty void. I stumbled backward. My hand went to my radio, but before I could call for help, the hallway lights flickered and she was gone. The room was empty, but the IV drip, still swinging as if someone had just let go. I didn't sleep that morning. Instead, I checked the hospital's records. And there she was. Nurse Evelyn Carter. Died 30 years ago. In room 409. She had made a fatal mistake, gave the wrong dosage to a patient. When she realized what she had done, she locked herself inside the room and took her own life. Some say she's still there, trying to fix her mistake. I don't know what I saw last night, but I do know one thing. I'm never going near room 409 again. My name is Ethan. I've been working night shifts as a nurse at St. Vincent's Hospital for almost a year now. I've heard all the ghost stories, the wandering patient in the East Wing, the crying child in pediatrics, the flickering lights in the morgue. I never believed any of them until last night. It started at 2:30 a.m. I was walking past the old surgical ward when I saw a light on in operating room 6. That was strange. OR 6 hadn't been used in years. The hospital had built a new surgical wing, and the old operating rooms had been abandoned. Curious, I pushed the door open. A man stood inside, wearing an old-fashioned surgical gown and cap. His back was to me, his hands moving as if he were performing a procedure. The overhead surgical light cast long shadows on the walls. Dr. Dye called out. He didn't turn, he just kept working, muttering under his breath. I took a hesitant step forward. That's when I saw the patient, or rather the absence of one. There was no body on the operating table, no instruments, no monitors, just an old, rusted table covered in stains. Yet the doctor kept moving, his hands cutting, suturing, performing a surgery on nothing. A chill ran down my spine. Doctor, I tried again, my voice shaking. This time, he stopped. Slowly, he turned to face me, and my breath caught in my throat. His mask was soaked in blood. It dripped down his chin, staining his gown. His eyes hollow, sunken, yet somehow alive, locked onto mine. You're not supposed to be here, he whispered. The lights flickered. The air grew heavy, suffocating. The surgical instruments on the nearby tray shifted as if something invisible had brushed against them. I backed away, my pulse hammering in my ears. Then, the doctor moved. Not like a man, like something glitching, his body twitching closer in unnatural jerks. You're next, he rasped. The lights went out. I felt something cold brush against my arm, and then Nye was outside the room. The door was closed. The light inside gone. I stumbled backward, gasping for air. When I finally gathered enough courage to check inside, the room was empty. Don't know, doctor. No instruments. No blood. Just dust-covered floors and an abandoned operating table. I ran straight to the records office, and there he was. Dr. Jonathan Hayes, a surgeon who had worked in OR 6. He had died 40 years ago, in the middle of surgery, from a heart attack. The patient didn't survive either, but some say he never stopped operating. My name is Ryan. I work as a night shift technician at St. Augustine Hospital. It's not the most glamorous job, but I don't mind the quiet. Or at least, I didn't till last night, at around 3 a.m. I was finishing up some paperwork when the morgue intercom crackled to life. "Ryan, come down here." My stomach twisted. No one was supposed to be in the morgue. I grabbed my keys and took the elevator down to the basement. The air grew colder as the doors slid open, a damp, antiseptic smell filling my nose. The morgue was dark, silent, except one of the storage drawers was open. A body lay on the steel table, covered by a white sheet. I checked the clipboard on the wall. The body had been logged hours ago. Cause of death, accidental drowning. No autopsy scheduled until morning, so why was it out? A shiver ran down my spine. I reached for the sheet, hesitating. Then, slowly, I pulled it back, and my breath caught in my throat. The body, it was me. Pale, lifeless. A tag around my toe with my name, Ryan Carter. I stumbled back, knocking over a tray of instruments. The sound echoed through the morgue. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. Then the fluorescent lights flickered, and the corpse's eyes opened. I couldn't move. It sat up, its head tilting at an unnatural angle, its lips curled into a twisted smile. "You took my place," it whispered. I turned and ran. The hallway stretched endlessly, the lights blinking out one by one behind me. A cold presence chased me, footsteps that weren't mine, breathing that wasn't mine. Then the elevator doors opened. I dove inside, slamming the buttons as the doors began to close. I saw the shadow standing at the morgue entrance, watching, smiling. The elevator lurched upward, and the moment I reached the main floor, I bolted. I didn't stop running until I was outside, gasping in the freezing night air. When I returned in the morning, I checked the records again. There was no entry for a drowning victim that night, and my name, it was never on the morgue's log. But the storage drawer, the one I found open, it was empty, and the tag with my name, gone. My name is Lucas. I work as a night shift orderly at West Haven General. I've seen my fair share of strange things, people talking to invisible figures, hearing voices, even some who claim they can see the dead. But last night, I experienced something that I know wasn't just in my head. It started at 2:45 a.m. I was delivering medication to the ICU when I noticed something odd on the patient board. Room 217 occupied. That didn't make sense. Room 217 had been closed for months. A renovation issue. No one was supposed to be in there. I frowned, double-checking the chart. The name listed was Eleanor Glass. I'd never heard that name before. A cold chill ran through me. I decided to check for myself. As I approached room 217, the hallway felt wrong. The air was thick, heavy, almost suffocating. My footsteps echoed, strangely, like the walls were closer than they should be. The door was slightly open. A dim light flickered inside. I pushed the door open. A woman sat in the hospital bed, facing the window. Her gray hair hung in thin, brittle strands. Her gown was old, too old, like something from decades ago. The fourth line in her arm led to nothing. "Eleanor Glass?" I asked hesitantly. Slowly, she turned to look at me, her face sunken, hollow eyes. Skin paper thin, stretched too tightly over her bones. Lips cracked, blood dried at the corners. But the worst part, she smiled. "You finally came," she rasped. My breath hitched. You're not supposed to be here." Her eyes darkened. "Neither are you." The lights flickered again. The machines in the room began to beep, erratically, except there were no machines. Just empty space where they should have been. Then she moved. Not like a person, like something glitching. Her body jerking forward in unnatural bursts. I stumbled back. She reached out her fingers, too long, too thin, grabbing my wrist. I felt cold. like something was being pulled from me. I yanked away and sprinted into the hallway, gasping for air. When I turned back, the room was empty. No bed, no light, just an abandoned, dust-covered space. The patient board no longer had her name, but when I checked the hospital records, I found her. Eleanor Glass died in room 217, 50 years ago. My name is Adam. I've worked as a night nurse at Greenridge Hospital for the past 2 years. The job is usually quiet, but last Thursday night, something happened that I can't explain. It started with a simple mistake. I was assigned to check on a patient in room 304, a routine task. When I got there, the door was slightly open, and inside, a woman sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. Her long dark hair hung in tangled strands over her face. Her hospital gown was stained, wrinkled. "Miss Harper?" I asked, checking the chart in my hand. She didn't respond. I stepped closer. "Miss Harper, I need to check your vitals." Slowly, she lifted her head. Her face was wrong. Her eyes were sunken. Her skin almost gray. Her lips cracked and bleeding. And her mouth, it stretched into a slow, unnatural grin. I froze. My instincts screamed at me to leave. But before I could react, the overhead speakers crackled. Code blue. Room 304. A cold chill ran down my spine. I was in room 304. I turned toward the hallway. A team of nurses and doctors rushed past me into the room. They went straight to the bed X. It was empty. The sheets were neatly folded. Sign of the woman? I stumbled back, my heart hammering. "Where's the patient?" one of the nurses asked. I turned to point, but the woman was gone, and the name on the chart in my hand had changed. Not Harper, Adam Carter, my name. The monitors in the room beeped erratically. The air turned ice cold. Then, I felt something behind me. Breath on my neck, a whisper. "You were never supposed to be here." I don't remember what happened next. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. My coworkers told me they found me unconscious in room 304. But here's the thing, there is no room 304. The hallway ends at room 303, the space where 304 should be. It's just a solid wall. My name is Nathan. I've been a security guard at Redwood Hospital for almost a year. Most nights are quiet, just me, a few nurses, and the occasional patient wandering the halls. But last Thursday, something happened that I still can't explain. At around 3 a.m. I was doing my usual rounds when I noticed something strange on the security monitor's room. 509's door was open. That was impossible. 509 had been empty for years. No patients, no staff, nothing. I switched to the hallway camera outside the room. A man stood in the doorway, staring directly into the camera. He was tall, dressed in a patient's gown, his face obscured by shadows. I felt a chill run down my spine. I grabbed my flashlight and headed to the 5th floor. As I stepped out of the elevator, the air was thick, heavy like walking through water. The hallway was eerily silent. No beeping monitors, no distant voices from the nurses' station, just silence. And the door to room 509, wide open. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to turn around, but my legs carried me forward. Inside, the room was cold, freezing. A single hospital bed sat in the center, covered in yellowed sheets. And then I saw him, standing in the corner, motionless, watching me. His face was pale, his eyes hollow and sunken. His mouth twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You're not supposed to be here," he whispered. The door slammed shut behind me. The lights flickered, and suddenly, I wasn't in room 509 anymore. I was somewhere else. The walls were stained, covered in deep scratch marks. The bed was rusted, the air thick with the stench of decay. The man stepped closer. "I've been waiting," he said. His hands reached for me. "Lon." bony fingers stretching to 4. I screamed, and then I woke up, in room 509, alone. The door was closed. The hallway outside was normal. The security monitors showed nothing unusual. But when I checked the hospital records later, I found something that made my blood run cold. Room 509 had been closed for a reason. 30 years ago, a patient was found dead inside. A man in a hospital gown, with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. My name is Daniel. I've worked as a medical intern at Blackridge Hospital for 3 months now. Everyone warned me about the night shift, but I assumed they were talking about exhaustion. They weren't. It started last Saturday at exactly 2:17 a.m. I was making my rounds when I heard it screaming, blood-curdling, agonized screams echoing down the hall. I sprinted toward the sound, heart pounding. The screams were coming from the old psychiatric ward on the East Wing. That part of the hospital had been shut down for years. No patients, no staff. No one was supposed to be there. I hesitated at the entrance. The doors were rusted, paint peeling. The words, Ward D, barely legible above them. The screaming stopped. The sudden silence was almost worse. I took a deep breath and pushed the doors open. Inside, the air was heavy, stale. A faint smell of antiseptic and something metallic blood. The fluorescent lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the room. And then I saw them. Rows of empty hospital beds, leather restraints still fastened to the frames, wheelchairs tipped over, patient files scattered across the floor, and footprints in the dust, leading deeper inside. I should have turned back, but I didn't. I followed the footprints down the hall, my breath coming in short gasps. The air grew colder with each step. My own footsteps echoed back at me, except sometimes I heard an extra one, like someone was following just a step behind. Then I reached the last door. It was slightly ajar, a small flickering light inside. I pushed it open. The room was empty, except for a single hospital bed in the center, and strapped to it was me, my own face, pale and sunken. My own body, motionless, except for my eyes. They were wide open, staring at me in silent horror. The air pressure changed, the lights went out, and the screaming started again. This time, I was the one screaming. My name is Nathan. I used to work the night shift at St. Mary's Hospital as a security guard. The job was easy: walk the halls, check the cameras, make sure no one sneaks in or out. But there was one rule: never go into room 616. It was an old wing of the hospital, abandoned years ago. The doors were locked, the windows boarded up, but every now and then, the cameras would pick up movement inside, shadows shifting, a flicker of light, and sometimes, a voice. One night, around 2 a.m., the motion sensors in the old wing went off. I checked the monitors and saw something impossible. The door to room 616 was wide open. I grabbed my flashlight and radioed my partner, James. "Hey, something's up in the old wing. Meet me there." Static. James didn't respond. That was weird. He was always by his radio. I sighed and made my way down the dark hallway alone. The hospital always had this sterile, lifeless smell at night. But here, here it smelled like damp rot. The walls were cracked, paint peeling like dead skin. As I approached room 616, I noticed something odd. The door wasn't just open. It looked like it had been forced open. Claw marks raked across the wood. A chill ran down my spine. I shined my flashlight inside. The room was empty except for an old hospital bed, rusted and covered in dust. And then I saw it, a patient file lying on the bed. Curious, I stepped inside. The file was thick, filled with scribbled notes and illegible handwriting. The name on the cover sent a jolt through my body. Nathan Caldwell, my full name. My pulse pounded in my ears as I flipped through the pages. The reports described a patient who had been admitted for delusions. A man who believed he was a security guard. A man who had died in this room 50 years ago. I dropped the file. My breath came in sharp gasps. That's when I saw the reflection. In the cracked window, a figure stood behind me, pale, sunken eyes, a hollow face, dressed in a torn security uniform. It was me. The door slammed shut, and the lights went out. My name is Ethan. I work as a paramedic, which means I've been in and out of hospitals more times than I can count. But there's one hospital I'll never go back to. St. Vincent's. Not after what happened last month. It was a routine call. A car accident on the highway. The driver, a middle-aged man named Patrick, was in bad shape, broken ribs, internal bleeding, slipping in and out of consciousness. We rushed him to St. Vincent's, and as we wheeled him inside, he suddenly grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Don't take me to the 6th floor," he croaked. His eyes were wild with fear. I exchanged a look with my partner, Jenna. St. Vincent's only had 5 floors. "You mean the 5th floor?" I asked. He shook his head violently. "The 6th. Don't. Let them take me there, please." Before I could ask anything else, he passed out. We got him to the ER, and the doctors took over. I tried to shake off his words. He was delirious, probably just mumbling nonsense. But as we finished the paperwork, I felt uneasy. Then Jenna nudged me. "Look at that." She pointed toward the elevator panel, between the buttons for the 5th floor and the rooftop access. There was another button, one that shouldn't have been there. Jenna frowned. "Have you ever seen that before?" I shook my head. Something about it made my skin crawl. "Let's check it out," she said. I should have said no. I should have ignored it and walked out of that hospital. But instead, I found myself stepping into the elevator with Jenna. She pressed the button. The door slid shut, and the elevator started to descend. "Wait," I muttered. "We're going down." Jenna jabbed at the emergency stop button, but nothing happened. The air felt heavy, thick, like we were being pulled into something unnatural. Finally, the doors opened. We weren't in a hospital anymore. The walls were cracked and blackened with soot. The smell of burning flesh filled the air. Flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows on the filthy floor. And the sound? A distant, rhythmic thump, like something heavy being dragged. Jenna grabbed my arm. "Ethan, we need to. The lights." "Cut out then," came the whispering. Dozens of voices, murmuring, giggling, crying. They were all around us, pressing against the darkness. A figure lurched into the dim light. A man in a hospital gown, his face half burned, his mouth stretching too wide in a grotesque grin, his eyes locked onto mine. "You shouldn't have come here." The elevator doors slammed shut behind us. The last thing I remember is screaming as hands reached out from the walls. Then, I woke up in the ER. Jenna was gone. The doctors told me there was no 6th floor. No records of us ever stepping into that elevator. And Jenna? She was never found. But sometimes, when I drive past St. Vincent's, I see her, standing at the hospital window, staring down at me, and I know she's still there, trapped on the 6th floor. My name is Lucas. I've been a night janitor at Westwood General Hospital for almost 6 years. I thought I had seen everything: emergency room chaos, bloody surgeries, and even the occasional dead body being wheeled to the morgue. But nothing prepared me for what happened last Tuesday night. It started like any other shift. The halls were dimly lit, the smell of disinfectant thick in the air. Most of the hospital was quiet, except for the occasional beeping of heart monitors or the low murmur of nurses talking at the stations. Around 3 a.m., I was mopping the floor near the abandoned pediatric ward when I heard it. A faint giggle. I froze. That section of the hospital had been shut down for years. No patients, no staff, no reason for anyone to be there. I told myself it was just my imagination, but then I heard it again, closer. I tightened my grip on the mop handle and stepped toward the hallway. The doors to the pediatric ward were supposed to be locked, but one of them was slightly open. A sliver of darkness waiting on the other side. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. Pushing the door open, I stepped inside. The air was icicle dust floated in the dim light of the flickering overhead bulbs. Rows of small, rusted hospital beds lined the walls. Some still had old, moth-eaten, stuffed animals resting on the pillows. And then, I saw them dot tiny footprints in the dust, fresh, leading deeper into the ward. My breath hitched as I followed them, my footsteps unnervingly loud against the tile floor. The prints led to a single bed at the far end of the room. A nameplate was still attached to it, though the metal was corroded with time. I squinted to read the name, Eleanor Price. A gust of cold air hit my neck, and then, in a voice barely above, a whisper. I heard it. "That's my bed." I spun around. A little girl stood behind me. Her hospital gown was faded and torn, her long dark hair tangled around her face. Her skin was pale, too pale, and her eyes, hollow, empty. I staggered back, my heart hammering. She just stood there, staring, her lips curling into a slow, unnatural smile. The room suddenly felt smaller, the walls closing in. I turned to run, but the door was gone, just a blank, solid wall where it had been. I turned back, and she was right. In front of me now, her cold fingers reaching for my wrist. I screamed, and then everything went dark.